Rowe Show. Today is Thursday, July 26, 2018. I'm sitting in Rigby, Idaho with Eric Smith at a park, and we decided it was time to do another podcast. Hi, Eric.
Hey, Julie. Welcome to town. I need to apologize before we get too far that I've had this little flu, and so my voice isn't quite where it usually is if I sound a little scruffy. But anyway, how have things been going?
It's good. It's been a good trip so far. I've been in Utah for a couple days, and now I'm up here in Idaho working on some of the relief fund work, and it's really great. It's always great to come to Idaho. So
it was nice to go to Utah yesterday and meet some people, and even some people here in Idaho. It's always nice to see how the Lord orchestrates and causes us and leads us to people and leads people to you or to me. We're grateful for those who send emails and who are uplifted by the messages and the podcasts, and just want to thank you all for sharing these and for listening and for making it a matter of prayer and being uplifted in your faith through these.
Yeah, we've had some really good feedback, and it's nice to hear that from you guys. Kind of helps keep me motivated to do some more as the Spirit's directing us to do some pretty heavy topics coming up. As I've been asking the Lord for the last few weeks, the order of which He would like us to do these podcasts, the one that keeps coming to my mind is to discuss a topic that is briefly touched on in my most recent book that Eric wrote, my biography, which is Rising Above the Flames. And I touch briefly on some of my health issues and disclose in that book some of the mental health challenges that I've had. And so in light of that, to give more clarity and to hopefully help clear energy for those of you that are affected by mental health, either your own mental health issues or those of a loved one, friend, or family member, I was prompted to talk to Eric about doing this podcast, and we're going to lead into that on some other topics that tie into that, which is in reference to addiction and all different types of addiction, everything from drugs, alcohol, sex addiction, pornography, and some really difficult topics that we're going to talk about today. In working with my clients, there are several men, a few women that struggle with addiction, and my heart just goes out to them. So I want to talk to that audience and also tie that into what I see on the other side of the veil, what I've been taught, what I continue to be taught in regards to that energy. So with that, we'll move forward.
Great. You know, when we were writing your book, I remember early on, I still didn't know you well, and there were those reports and rumors of Julie Rowe and her mental illness. And so just as a side note, and I've never mentioned this to you, Julie, but I had early on just a really subtle concern that I might one day see you, have some sort of strange psychosis behavior that I had never encountered. And I'm happy to say that never has anything close to that. I've found Julie in all of our interviews, and I have interviewed and spoken with Julie for thousands of hours, and I'm not exaggerating, thousands of hours.
Yeah.
And in fact, not only has Julie not shown any signs of psychosis or, strange thinking behavior, Julie, to me, you're superior intellect. You're a very bright person, and some people call me an intellectual. I love studying, I love research, and I love university settings and learning. But I've noticed you also love learning, and anyway, I just want to add my stamp of approval to your intellect and your academic sense and your learning. Yeah.
Thank you. I do love education. I don't really care about letters behind my name, but I've had my fair share of formal education. I'm about 8 classes shy of my master's, and I just decided that wasn't the plan to ever really finish. Because I don't need to utilize a master's degree. And I love to read and study on my own. That's where I've received most of my education, is through the Spirit, however, in my near-death experiences and through personal revelation. The Spirit can teach us through direct revelation in a much more pure form than any book or public speaker ever could, right? Any kind of formal teaching. And while those tools are helpful and here on the earth for us to utilize. I think pure revelation is really what we should work for, so that we can have pure channels of communication with our Father in heaven and our Savior Jesus Christ. That is what I seek after. That is where my heart is, and I have learned so much from them. There just are no words to express my gratitude and appreciation for our Father in heaven and our Savior Jesus Christ. I hope in doing this work that I can help others who are listening to these podcasts clear energy. If you have not listened to all the podcasts, or you haven't listened to some of the other ones for a long time, I encourage you to go back through and listen to the podcasts again, those that, pique an interest for you, or you have an interest in, or if the Spirit's prompting you to listen to a certain topic, that's for a reason. It can serve as an energy session for you. Just think of it as a free energy session, because you're able to clear some of your emotions that might be holding you back and progressing in the kingdom. That is the purpose for why I wanted to talk about some of these difficult topics that are coming up in the next couple of months. And I think I touched on them briefly in the last podcast we did in regards to repentance and how to get your calling and election. We titled it that way on purpose because we wanted people to actually know that in order to get your calling and election, you have to repent. That's the building block. On this podcast, we're gonna discuss some very difficult things. I know that there will be people that will be offended. That is not my intent, but my intent is to speak truth as Father has taught it to me, and from a personal standpoint of experience, so that you know that I'm not judging anyone who struggles with these issues. I do mention in my biography that I had individuals in my life who were abusive, and every single one of those men had a porn problem, and I feel very strongly about the issue of pornography. Not from a judgmental standpoint, but just from a heartfelt concern for those that struggle with this weakness, because it is absolutely inspired by the adversary, and there's a lot that goes into that. Same with mental illness. Any and all mental illness that is passed down to us genetically, whether it's in our spiritual or physical DNA. And there is a difference, although spiritual DNA turns into physical DNA. And so everything is spiritually created before it is physically manifested. I want you to think about that. The earth was spiritually created before it's physically manifested, as were we are spiritually created. And so the energy that goes into our spiritual DNA, or then later on into our physical DNA affects our mental health. In addition to that, from an outside energy, the adversary has the ability to implant thoughts, emotions, frequencies, and energy, including the form of energy weapons. This is spiritual warfare. Now, people have asked me often if the premortal battle was actually physical or if it was just spiritual. To me, it's one and the same, but the memories I have of that battle are that it was very physical. We were spirit matter, but spirit matter is just kind of, I look at it like finer matter, but it's still matter. It's movable, it's manipulative, able to be manipulated, and it can be formed, it can be changed, it can transform, transfer, and transcend, and it can be translated. And so when I do these sessions with my clients, what I often will do, as I see the dark energy that's either been implanted or has been passed down through generational things, or if someone has, for instance, some kind of a trauma of abuse as a child, and then that energy magnifies and collects or attracts other energy at that frequency, what I've been taught by the Spirit is how to clear some of that energy and to flip or change the energy so that it goes from a negative to a positive. If you look at the basic science of magnets, or you look at the basic science of the positive negative ions or atoms, that's what we're looking at when we talk about energy. Everything is energy around us. So when I look at someone who I can discern has a mental illness or has some kind of an addiction, and my understanding is addiction is a form of mental illness because it literally changes the neurotransmission in the brain. I don't look at someone from just one dimension or even 2 or 3 dimensions. I see their energy, I see their auric layers, I see and feel and hear more of what's going on with their energy bodies, BODIES, and the chakras and the magnetics and the meridians, and so much that goes into play, the gamma rays and everything. And there are so many factors that influence whether someone has an addiction of any kind or has any kind of a mental illness, including homosexuality. Now, it used to be that in the DSM-4, or DSM-3, which is the book the psychologists used to diagnose mental illness. It used to be that homosexuality was termed a mental illness, and several years ago, during my young adult years, they came out with a new DSM-4, which is the updated version for the diagnosis book for mental illnesses that psychiatrists and psychologists use, and they took out homosexuality as a mental illness. Now, I had a conversation with someone the other day, and we're going to do an entire podcast on homosexuality at some point in the next several months. I don't know when. But same thing with depression, anxiety, suicide, murder. Anyone who participates in those acts is not in their right mind. Either someone else has seized their mind and heart, or they themselves have turned to darkness on their own, or it has been passed down genetically to them that they have some kind of an impulse behavior issue or a psychopathic personality disorder or personality disorder. There are many, many reasons why someone might suffer from something that could cause them ailment like this. My undergrad degree was in psychology, and so I have actually studied this in school. I've worked in the field, but the things that I've learned that I want to talk to you about today are not the things that psychologists and psychiatrists talk about, because they do not yet understand what goes on. Just in the last few years, scientists have admitted and discovered that we have 5 dimensions. I used to say that there were only 3 dimensions around us, and I have been in communication with people from many more dimensions than that. So I'm here to witness and testify to you that there's a lot that science has not yet discovered here on planet Earth, and the Lord is light years ahead of human beings here on the planet. When it comes to mental illness, I'm just going to describe to you what I actually see, feel, and hear when I come across someone that has mental illness. I do have the gift to be able to discern this in people, and I'm able to read the heart energy, the thought energy, the gamma rays, and other things that come across an individual. There are certain frequencies that are emitted by individuals with different types of mental illness. And as they send those frequencies out, they attract other frequencies to them, which magnify the energy within their systems, within their bodies. We have the cosmic, ethereal, mental, and emotional bodies. Now, this can get into some complex science, so I'm going to try to keep it as basic as possible. But I want you to think outside of the logic of your human mind and think about the universe being energy. All intelligences, the intelligence is the glory of God. All intelligence was designed to have a purpose. Gender was foreordained before we came to the earth as you were formed. And just because that spirit matter or even that physical matter has been manipulated does not mean that you were originally designed that way. Let me give you an example. I've been working with another practitioner, and as she has identified DNA protein coding formulas and DNA protein that's the basic way to say it, DNA protein codings. We have been working together on a book because as she has identified those, but she doesn't know the purpose behind the names, I have had live vision from the other side where they have taught me and shown me some of the things that they've taught me previously, primordially, as well as in my NDEs or night visions, and then I get live feed where I'm able to identify through the spirit because they're telling me that particular protein coding gene, for example, refers or is what leads to different forms of mental illness or to certain types of addictions or to manipulation of the gene pool or cancer or whatever else that someone might suffer from in a mortal sphere, because we are further and further away from having pure bodies like we did in the Garden of Eden. As we become more fallen and time goes on, that manipulation from the dark side has increased. If you pay attention to our world, I would venture to say that most of you know, if you yourself are not suffering or have not suffered from depression or anxiety at least once in your life, you know someone that does. And some of those anxieties and depressions or OCDs are debilitating. And we have a lot more of that going on. Things that are affecting us are everything from the chemicals put in foods, the preservatives, the EBV virus, Lyme disease, and that can all be manipulated into the preservatives of our foods, soaps, detergents, and the gadiantins that are on planet Earth, as well as those on the other side of the veil, have been conspiring against us to be able to influence our gene pool and to keep us from being able to create light energy and to make us sick and to control. So there are some very dark purposes as to why they are doing this. But what I have seen and been able to work with clients is that you can, it is manipulated by the dark side, but it can be manipulated back, it can be changed, it can be purified. And that's where we have the atonement that comes in. That's where we have resurrection at a future date. That's where we have translation of the human body. You literally are translating and changing the DNA that makes up your physical body at the time. You change emotionally, you change spiritually, and then you change physically. And there's an order to that when you're talking about translation. So I'm talking a lot, Eric. Is there anything you want to add? Okay.
No, keep at it. You're on a roll. So, but you were talking about mental illness. Anyway, finish your thought there.
So with mental illness, it's a layered concept. It's a layered idea. It's a layered effect. Now, this is where people are going to have a hard time. It's a false theory or false idea. It used to be, if you study history, that if someone was diagnosed with a mental illness, they put them in a straitjacket or locked them up and sometimes even put them to death, and there was a period in history where people just thought that the reason somebody had a mental illness was because they were possessed of the devil, or they were making bad choices and they were sinning against God, or that their parents had sinned. There's all kinds of theories out there that we've had come forth in the past years on this earth. There is a little bit of truth in all of those theories, but that is not the core cause or the core reason. And agency is at play here, folks. We had premortal decisions that we made and things and missions that we signed up for where we agreed to certain conditions, including those physical ailments or calamities that we would experience in mortality. Now, that's one of the ways that I cope with my mental illness that I've been given, that came through, some of it on my family line, and it was triggered by the EBV virus that was implanted in me, as well as the Lyme disease. And, when I have seizures, I literally feel like someone's trying to seize my brain. It's an adversarial effect. I will see anything from little gremlins trying to claw at my skull to hooded men that hide in the shadows that are trying to seize control. Think about Star Wars, and I don't want to get too much into this, but the dark side is constantly trying to seize control of the light side. That's what they aim to do, and they do that in a number of different ways. On Earth, as human beings, we have members of our government, worldwide and in the United States government, who are manipulating our food through GMO and other things, which are affecting our mental health and our physical health. You can't separate the two. You cannot separate your mental health from your physical health. They're tied together. And we also have members of our government who are purposefully sending frequencies out. They have high-end technology that they have not disclosed to the public. If you talk to certain senators and other people that are familiar, I've been in touch with them, and they have confirmed and verified this for me. There are some very dark people who are literally sending frequencies out. They'll put antennas up and they'll send them out in certain populations. They've been doing this for a long time. Now, it sounds really sci-fi, but I see the same thing going on in the spirit world. They do it in the spirit world and they do it here on Earth. This is a telestial state, and in the spirit realm, we have spirit prison, we have spirit paradise, and we have celestial worlds, telestial worlds, and telestial and terrestrial worlds where people reside with varying levels of degrees of darkness and light. And then we have, clear out and outer darkness, to varying degrees of abuse and manipulation of these forms of matter. In addition to that, when I look at something like homosexuality, or we look at somebody that has an addiction, somebody that has a sex fetish or some kind of weird anomaly that's occurring in their body, there are reasons why someone has that handicap or that issue, and it is due to gene manipulation. It's whether that's on a spiritual end or a physical end, and it's also due to many times spirit attachments, or to dark energy. It's all dark matter. It's all dark energy in varying degrees. It might be more gray than dark. Sometimes it's absolutely black. When I scan someone's body and I can see that they have black spots on their liver, and then the spirit tells me they have cancer, that is dark matter that was implanted there or manipulated by the adversary. Same thing when I look and scan at someone's brain. If I see that their neurotransmitters are off and that they have a porn addiction, that has been brought on by things passed down genetically through dark matter or energy frequencies that are being sent. And then it's reinforced by the actions of the individual who succumbs to that addiction. So there are a lot of factors there, and I want us to be careful, and we need to discern, but we need to be very careful in making judgments, because there are so many layered reasons as to why someone has a mental illness, why someone has a certain predisposition or weakness, and why someone has any kind of addiction. Just like there are so many reasons why we have the strengths that we do or the gifts that we do. There are a lot of reasons why I have the gifts that I have, and they pertain to the importance of the mission that I've been given. And I have many, many weaknesses. Those weaknesses are part of what make up my genetic makeup, both spiritual and physical DNA, and my energy bodies. Every single one of us has at least 7 layers to our energy bodies, and those of us that have lived longer into the eternities have thousands of layers of our energy bodies. And depending on the age of our spirits and how many probations we've had and things like that, it all goes into play. If you've had a past probation where there was some kind of trauma that happened to you, you carry that energy into your next probation. And that's why we have, things that are passed down to us genetically, as well as life energies, and why we have things, premortal things that come up. Some of you have memories of premortal war. Some of you have memories of being a guardian angel on the planet and things like that. And that all comes into play when we're talking about any kind of illness or any kind of behavior, any kind of strength or weakness in our personalities and things like that. In addition to being born into certain bloodlines, which have predispositions, if you have, the reality is if you come from a family line, often of royalty like I do, there was a lot of incest, a lot of molestation, a lot of raping, and a lot of dark things that happened in the Middle Ages and some of the other times on this planet. And being born into that bloodline, I have a lot of genetic things from dark energy that were passed down to me that I have tried to clear out, breaking the chains and breaking the curses that have been put upon my family line or upon this earth. And that is all real stuff. We break the contracts, break the curses, we get rid of the hexes, we get rid of the marks. Those are all things that are real. It's things that members of the LDS Church don't like to talk about. It's things that most people don't want to talk about because most people don't know that it's real, and the adversary tries to tell us that it's a bunch of hogwash. All right, I'm going to take a break. So that was a lot for those of you that experience these, and every single one of you who's listening to this can identify. And if you're not identifying, then you're being blocked right now. And the reason I say that is because you're in mortality living in 2018. It'd be different if you were living in the Garden of Eden. But by the time we've gotten to this point on the earth, there is so much dark matter on this planet, and there's so much wickedness that we cannot avoid the repercussions of the frequencies and other things that are being sent our way. Okay, so related to mental illness. Now, it's not a pleasant thought to think about being possessed, but I'm here to tell you that every single one of you at some point in time has had that dark energy flow in and out of you. That's how it is. Someone is not possessed. We have this idea that to be possessed, you have to be wicked. That is just not true. I have seen toddlers who are possessed throwing a tantrum, and the reason they're throwing a tantrum is because they're possessed and they don't like the evil spirit inside of them. Or I've seen spirit attachments. A spirit attachment is entirely different than an actual possession. It is true that through our wicked actions, our sinful behavior, or that we can give openings to the adversary to take possession. And so anytime someone looks at porn or commits adultery or does something like that, it can open them up to the adversary. For instance, if you drink alcohol, actually the drinking of alcohol in itself isn't necessarily an awful thing, like if it's pure wine in the days of Christ, right? But the impurities that are in the alcohol now have chemical reactions in our brains and in our bodies and our hearts that literally create openings in our auric layers and in our energy bodies. And because of that, you open up dark portals within your energy bodies, and that gives an opening for dark energy to enter in, which is one of the reasons when someone gets drunk or high, you'll hear them talking in weird voices. They get silly. Some of them, you hear people say, well, he's an angry drunk or she's a happy drunk. And most often it's because someone has taken possession. I've actually paid attention over the years. You can, in most cases, most people could drink probably, I've never had any alcohol, so I'm not taking this from experience as far as actually having it happen in my body, but I've watched it at work functions for my husband and other environments when I watch people's behavior and I can see their energy and I can actually see the demons jump in. And you can usually, most of the people I see, they can have maybe a half a beer to a beer. And then the opening in the crown of the head begins, and then I will watch 1 or 2 demons take possession. They'll jump into the crown of the head because it leaves an opening. everybody, depending on their body weight, we know, some guys can drink 6 beers, some guys can drink hard whiskey, some women are 5'2" and 100 pounds, and they'll get drunk on a couple of beers. And so depending on your body weight and your body chemistry and your makeup, makes you more or less vulnerable to the dark matter that could take over. In addition to that, choices that we make, what we look at, what we watch, what we listen to, all affects our auric layers and the energy bodies around us. What I literally see is most people walking around are not fully in their body. Their spirit's somewhat detached from their body, and there's ways that you can command your spirit to go back into your body, and then which leaves you vulnerable. And then I see these holes that are in the energy bodies or auric layers that can end up looking like cheesecloth. That's the best way to describe it. And so you need to ask the Lord to help reshield, repair, and replenish your shields. And you can ask for something called Sound Remedy D that repairs the holes in your energy bodies. It's an actual music chord that we found has helped heal the energy bodies. Or you can listen to uplifting music. And a lot of high energy vibration instrumental music. There are a lot of remedies that we have. When you have the faith to do this, you can ask for the elements in your body to get back in alignment. You can ask for the excess energies to depart, and those energies that are imbalanced to leave your system. So there are a lot of things that, as you pray to Father in Heaven and ask Him to teach you how to heal your body, in healing your body, you're healing your spirit. You can end up becoming eventually a whole person as you're one day resurrected or translated. I feel very strongly about mental illness. I feel strongly about these addictions. I've had many loved ones suffer from addictions, and it destroys marriages, it destroys families. And it breaks my heart when I think about those who suffer from the addiction, as well as those that have been perpetrated on, or those that suffer because they've been betrayed. The betrayal energy, the jealousy energy, all of that goes into what makes up our marriages and our families and affects us in how we discipline our children. Because when someone participates in sinful behavior, and specifically something like porn addiction or sex addiction, really, you have entities that are mobbing you and swarming around you, and they do jump into your system, which is why people then end up masturbating and doing other things that cause shame energy. Shame energy is of the lowest vibration, along with hate energy. Shame energy is actually a lower vibration than hate energy, and it is one of Satan's greatest tools to help us feel like we're not worthy of the atonement, that we're not worthy in general, and that there's no hope for us. Then he brings in the depression demons, the despair demons. He does despair anchors, and it's a downhill spiral from there. And then he can open people up to suicide and murder and a bunch of other crap. And there is hope for all of us who have got loved ones that are affected by this. For those that are within the sound of my voice, whether you're on this side of the veil or the other, I want you to know that there is hope for you. It is not over. And as Lucifer lies to you to tell you that you can't do it, or you're not worthy, or that you're going to succumb again, or whatever lie he's telling you at the moment, I want you to take a pause for reflection. I want you to hear my voice when I tell you that that's a lie. You can go to the light. You can ask for the Lord to forgive you. And if you have pure intent and a genuine heart and a broken heart and contrite spirit, at some point in time, you will overcome that addiction. There are some people that may never overcome it in this lifetime, but we should never keep trying. And it's also a lie that you can't keep progressing in the eternities on the other side of the veil. You can. It's difficult when you don't have a body. But I see people all the time on the other side of the veil who are in spirit prison. They accept the gospel and they move into the light, and they're welcomed into spirit paradise. And so that plan of salvation is critical for us to have faith in the plan and to recognize, this war in heaven. One of the main key points that Lucifer tried to make was that we couldn't depend on Christ, and that we didn't want to depend on Christ because what if he didn't complete his mission? When that falls in line with my mission, I am told all the time by the adversary that I'm worthless, that I'm ugly, that I'm fat, that I have food addiction. Yeah, I do have issues with what I eat, and there's a lot of reasons why I struggle with my weight. I have never had any kind of other addiction, but I know what it's like to feel like you have lost control of your appetites. I know what it's like to feel like you are helpless or hopeless. I know what it's like to feel suicidal. I know what it's like to feel like there is no hope and to have such despair that you can't imagine living another day, let alone even another minute. It is a horrible feeling. I would not wish mental illness on my greatest enemy. But I volunteered for this mission. They've made it very clear to me that premortally I made a choice, and I actually asked to undergo the trials that I've gone through. Those of you that have read my book or will read my book, that's the PG version of some of the R-rated things I've been through in my life. Eric and I have been talking about maybe one day, once some of my family members have passed on, telling the real story. But I wanted the book to be meaningful. I wanted it to help heal people, and I wanted people to get enough of an idea to know a little bit about me without depressing them. Still have it be an uplifting book. I have gone through hard things. Many of you have gone through much harder things than I've gone through. And I hope that you'll hear me when I say to you that I love you. I appreciate your strength. I have hope for you and for this plan, and I believe in you. I believe in Father in heaven, and I believe in the Savior. And when they tell me that the atonement can heal all things and all people, I know that to be true. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it can happen when we do our part. With mental illness, it hits a really strong chord with me on a personal level from how I've been falsely accused or falsely judged by my family and judged by society at large, because there's a real stigma that comes with even the words mental illness, the energy, even the vibration of the word mental illness is a low vibration. It brings with it just this depression energy. And there's reasons for that. There's been such a stigma, and there's been so much trauma that has occurred toward those individuals who have shown signs of instability. You take someone who has an illness like schizophrenia, and they tell people that they're seeing people or they're hearing voices. They really are. They're not just crazy. There's something that happens in their brain that causes the veil to be thin and gives access to the dark side, or the dark side has access to them. It's legit. And it's not something to joke about. It's not something to make fun of, and it's not something to judge people with. My heart goes out to any and all who've ever suffered from schizophrenia, bipolar, OCD, oppositional defiant behavior, or any other mental illness. And one of the biggest things that hits the negative chord is the topic of homosexuality. I have had lots of people email me asking about homosexuality, and I have avoided it on purpose. I was told for 4 years not to even touch on it because of how controversial it is. And last week, the Spirit started working on me and softening my heart and getting rid of fear energy, because I have some family members very close to me that are homosexual, and I love them with all of my heart. But it is a form of mental illness. It is not normal to be gay. There has been gene manipulation, whether it is in their own body or someone in their family line that passed it down to them. There has been gene manipulation by the dark side. It is not normal. And no matter what society says, it never will be normal, because it's contrary to the plan of salvation and to eternal laws. To create a light world, you must have a man and a woman. To create a dark realm, you can still have 2 women and 2 men. The energy is different. In order to create light worlds, which is what we are accomplishing to combat the dark side, you must have a male and a female energy. That is how it is. God didn't make it up. That's just the natural law. And we try really hard on this planet lately, and they did it in the days of Cain, and they did it in the days of Noah and other generations. They have tried and tried and tried. Satan has tried and tried and tried to get us to convince ourselves that we need to be accepting of certain false doctrines, certain teachings that are absolutely contrary to the plan of salvation. I have great respect for any and all in those communities who struggle with this, and to have it itself is not a sin. I was going to do a whole podcast on this later. Maybe we will and touch some more on it, but I just want to send out my love and my gratitude to each of those. I have 2 sisters that are so good to me. and I love them very much. And I know some of what they've been through. And I have other family members. And I've got lots of family members and friends who have husbands that have had porn addictions. And I have friends whose daughters have porn addictions. I know how I'm being affected by mental illness in my family and in my life. And I'm only 45. For some of you that are 80 or 85, you know even more people. This is not going away. Until there is a cleansing on this earth where we can take the elements and take them back to their purest form, this dark energy will just keep increasing. So what do we do to combat the enemy to make sure that we don't fall or succumb to more dark energy than we need to? We do healthy things. We set healthy boundaries. We have higher thoughts. We raise our energy vibrations by praying, reading our scriptures. That does not make the mental illness go away. I can't tell you how many people have judged me and have tried to say that I was diagnosed bipolar because I must have done something to bring it on. Or how many false beliefs I've come across where people have tried to say that, somebody has some kind of weakness, or that I've had some kind of weakness because I wasn't praying enough. I had a family member right when I was out of the hospital who had no idea that I had a near-death experience and the spiritual experience that I had. And she said to my husband, well, if Julie would just read her scriptures and pray, she could be healed. The atonement heals, but maybe it's part of the plan that I suffer from this and it's for a much higher purpose. And I can tell you, guys, I read my scriptures and I say my prayers and I go to the temple, but I still get depressed because depression demons want to make me depressed, and because I have a genetic predisposition for that gene. I hope you hear me when I say that I am not judging anyone who goes through this. My heart goes out to you. I have no fear anymore of going public with my story about my near-death experiences or my gifts that I have in relation to what I see, hear, feel, and smell from the other side of the veil. I have no fear. The adversary has tried to invoke fear for my entire existence, and I'm here to tell you that one of the biggest things I was afraid of was to tell the public that I was diagnosed with a mental illness. I lived in fear of that for years. I was in fear of the illness because it is scary when someone takes possession of you. It is scary when you see things, when you see a 3-foot spider from the other side of the veil crawling up your wall. It is scary when you see a hooded guy at the end of your bed. It is scary when you hear a demon tell you they're going to kill you. But it's real. That is the reality of the life that I live in. The other side is that I get to see chariots in the sky. I get to see beautiful worlds. I get to see all kinds of stuff that most people who are on the planet don't see, because that's the plan for me. Most people who have a mental illness just see the dark side, and we cannot judge them. They volunteered for it premortally. They are brave, brave souls. And one day their body will be whole. One day they will be healed, and one day they will not be tormented. I have a lot of physical pain, but to me, the mental pain has been far more damaging and far more painful than any physical pain I've been through. And I've been in enough physical pain where Satan was trying to kill me so many times that I was, leaving my body 6 different times. That's how bad mental illness is, because when they can take over your body, they can take over your spirit, they think they can manipulate and create and do all kinds of stuff. Eric, I had a lot in there, didn't I? I'm like, wow, I think this was an energy session for me to clear some stuff. Do you have any questions on that?
Well, I don't have questions, but I'm just adding my witness. I know when you speak by the power of the Holy Ghost, and I know that many of your listeners do as well, and so I'm less inclined to speak up or interrupt this flow of revelation you're getting. So I really don't have any questions. I feel like you've said just what's needed.
Yeah. Now, really what keeps coming to me, Eric, is how I just need to caution people not to be judgmental.
Right.
We are not to judge, you guys. Now, not judging is different than discerning or embracing. But I will be the first to express my love to people of all faiths, all communities, all belief systems. They are my brothers and sisters. I love them with all of my heart, wherever you may be on both sides of the veil. I hope you hear me when I say this. But there are certain boundaries, there are certain laws, and there are certain things that affect us, that affect and have a ripple effect on this universe. As we seek the Lord, He can comfort us, He can heal our hearts, and He can heal our bodies when it's right. It may be that we have this addiction until we get to the other side of the veil and we're in the millennium and you finally get a resurrected body. Some people are able to overcome the addiction in mortality, and to them, I am so grateful for their strength and their faith and their testimony and their example. But we are not to judge. Having said that, also, for those of you that are in abusive relationships, my heart goes out to you. Because when someone is married to someone with an addiction, it is very, very difficult. And again, we're not to judge those individuals either. When we break the chains, when we break the patterns, when we get rid of the curses and the contracts, that's when we're healed. That's our responsibility with the gathering. That's part of the Lord's work with the gathering. He is gathering His children now on earth and on the other side of the veil so that eventually He can gather them home. I have faith in His eternal plan. I know it to be true. I volunteered for this mission, and I volunteered to be an example of being bold. The Lord keeps telling me to be more and more bold. I have struggled with that because I feel like I'm already more bold than most people who are speaking out, trying to have a righteous purpose. And yet, in an effort to cast out my own fear of what people might think or say against me, I know that I need to stand as a witness of Christ and as His witness. And while I do not speak for Him, I speak for myself, and I stand as a witness of our Savior Jesus Christ, of His eternal plan, of the importance of agency. We fought for agency premortally, and I will always fight for agency. And I will always fight for the light worlds. And that means I have no tolerance for the lies that Lucifer says. I hope you will stand with me, stand up, stand tall, and stand forward. Gain strength in your own faith, your own belief systems, and your own desires to choose the right. Not with church culture, because that stuff drives me crazy. I hate the church culture. But I love the gospel. The pure gospel of Jesus Christ. And I hope you will stand with me, shaking off the chains, getting rid of the false belief systems, getting rid of the culture that is keeping us from being able to progress into a lighter, greater world. We are transcending, we are being translated, and one day, in the near future, many of you will be translated and you'll be working with the 144,000. And many of you will be able to do rescue missions, and many of you will be able to achieve far greater blessings than you have any comprehension of right now. The Lord fulfills all of His blessings to His children, all of His promises to His children. We have to do our part, and that means having a broken heart and contrite spirit. It's not about being perfect. It's not about being worthy. It's about being honest in heart and pure in heart. And so cast out any of that negative influence that you can. Listen to good music, say your prayers, go to the temple. For those of you that are not of the LDS faith, look to the Lord and ask Him what He wants you to do. There are also reasons why certain people are born in the covenant or not. And we need to be careful about judging that, because there are a lot of reasons why somebody might not be born as a member of the church. It's not because they were necessarily unworthy premortally in some of those lies that have been told. All right. So, having said that, I think we're ready to wrap it up, Eric. I think I got it all out. We'll save the rest for the next podcast. I'm not sure exactly what that'll be. I think I mentioned last time some of the other ideas I've had on grief. I thought I was going to do a podcast just on homosexuality. I feel like maybe we got that taken care of, but who knows? Maybe I'll do another one. And suicide and murder and some of those really difficult topics that no one wants to talk about, but that affect every single one of us on this planet.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Really, thank you for your time today. I appreciate your remarks and your wisdom.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric. Thanks for listening. I hope it helps somebody.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.